Andy Palmer, who directed the upcoming comedy film The Re-Education of Molly Singer, which will be released in theaters and on digital platforms on September 29th, 2023, is here today and on our show. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you for having me. So good to be here.
It's so great.
I,
I saw the film last night,
oh, good.
and I tell you, I loved it. It brought me back to not even college. It brought me back to high school
Yep, yep.
because I hate to say this, but we drank a lot in high school.
I listen. I come from a small town. We are no stranger to the keggers out in the forest ourselves. So I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, so I really bonded with this film, and I also bonded with the fact that you're a versatile director, and you remind me of somebody, a very good friend of mine, Ted Kotcheff, who did
Oh wow.
many films, different films, action,
Yep.
comedy, and thrillers. He did all kind of films and romance, and you fit that category because you jump around horror to
Yep.
comedy. And I was like, wow, how can you explain that? Like, you
I
know,
I definitely like look at I look at guys that I was chasing when I was younger, right? Like when I got into film and stuff like that, I wanted to be like Kevin Smith and Edward Burns, and like those are my guys, Soderbergh, and stuff like that. And I
right.
look now at sort of what I become, and I look at directors that like I really, not that I don't love those guys, but I admire. One of the guys that I look at and I'm like, God, what a craftsman was like Richard Donner. Like he could do anything, action, drama, comedy, like, just a sort of like storytelling craftsman. And I think if I could have any sort of career, a Richard Donner, a Ron Howard, these guys that can jump from genre to genre. And at the end of the day, what they really want to do is just tell great stories, with good characters.
Absolutely. How did you come up with the title of the film, and what does it mean to you?
Sure. Well, it's ironic. When I got the script from Todd Friedman a few years ago, he had actually written it with Kevin many years earlier, and it was called The Re-Education of David Singer. So it was actually a male-driven comedy, and sort of had a different perspective and a different sort of humor. It felt more like '90s American Pie, road trip, and stuff like that. Very funny. The concept was the same, but I was like, hey, we should, let's freshen this up. And like, I was like, we've never seen a female Van Wilder before, like that sort of like campus, that the campus queen that like rules all and stuff like that. And I was like, that'll just add like a cool perspective. And so we started tinkering with, all the characters, all the tropes and stuff like that. And for a while, I think the movie was called Collegiate because we thought maybe the re-education of Molly Singer was too long. But there's just something about it that like kind of rolls off the tongue, I think.
Actually, it was a very interesting title. I enjoyed it. What inspired you to direct this particular comedy film, and how did you approach the genre and the tone of the story?
Sure. So I was actually editing a film for Todd, a movie called Collection that he had written and produced with my producing partner Warner Davis. And he knew that I also directed, and he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, oh, I really want to do a comedy. I want to do a comedy like Weird Science, like I want to do that sort of John Hughesy sort of movie. And he's like, oh my God, I love John Hughes, and B, I have that movie. So he had given me the Singer script, and I was like, oh, this is great. And so that was sort of the snowball that got the movie going. As far as approaching the film, I wanted to create movies like, like we talked about, that kind of throwback to high school. Is like every movie that I ever want to make, I want to imagine me being 15 years old sitting in the basement with my friends and being like, what are we renting tonight? And for me, a movie has to have humor, but it also has to have like equal parts heart. And I think that like that was what I was always trying to go with, was like, we're going to do these sort of funny, stingy things and make little comments here and there on society, college at large, and everything like that. But at the end of the day, the theme of this movie is all about finding yourself, finding out who you are as a person. And so for Molly, it's about, she brings out the best in people. What we discover about Molly is that everyone around her is better because of her presence, but she's in a job where she's only around people at their worst. So of course that's not what she should be doing with her life, even though she thinks it is, because there's no opportunity there. Nobody's gonna like waltz out of a boardroom and be like, woohoo, that divorce went great, and so that's about kind of finding what she's meant to do. For Polly, it's about not revolt, rebelling against his parents to the point where his individuality makes him, be working at the high school cafeteria when he could be doing so much more with his life, right?
True.
And then for both, for Elliot and Brenda, it's basically overcoming that trauma of losing, their dad, their husband, and finding their life on that next step, and doing it with humor and stuff like that, so that it doesn't get too saccharine sweet, but at the same time, doesn't feel mean spirited. I remember watching Office Christmas Party. Did you see Office Christmas Party?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah.
The thing that I absolutely loved about that movie is that, like, that Ehrlich character, that was like sort of like the sort of like unhinged character and stuff like that. It all came from only wanting to like make the employees feel good on Christmas. Like it actually, at its heart, at its core, had this like such this sweet message and this sweet, and I was like, that's sort of what I would like to do. Like I want to do that, is like have it all come from this sort of positive place.
Yeah, because I had many discussions with Ted Kotcheff about Weekend at Bernie's when he directed that
Yeah,
movie, and I
such a
and,
classic.
and I said to him, I said, "There's only so much that you could do with a dead body, Like, how did you, ever do this film?" He says, "Antonio, it was not easy, but we
Yeah.
did it," and the comedy was there. It was just great. And this
Oh,
film that you did, the actors that you cast were just
yeah.
totally amazing, and they had so much charisma. What was it like working with Britt Robertson and Ty Simpkins and Nico Santos and also Jaime Pressly? How was working with these?
Yeah, the cast was like an absolute dream, and the cool thing was is that I was fans of everybody. Like I was just fans of the cast, so it was like, I like their work. And Britt I had seen in Tomorrowland, and I just was like, who is this person that is just going toe to toe? George Clooney and her, and the chemistry was there, and just her delivery, her timing, and she did a show called For the People that was very similar, in that realm, where she just Britt gets in a scene and she just owns that scene, and I was like, that's what Molly needs to do, but not in like a disruptive way. It has to be in this sort of like represents the audience in our movie. She's the one that's sort of taking us on this journey. So if she's too over the top and she's too broad, then the movie's going to feel too broad. So she's sort of like does these sort of, it's like scalpel comedy where she's just in there with like these little shallow cuts, and then Nico gets to be big and stuff like that. Nico, when we were writing originally the character, his name was Haas, and he was sort of like a Stifler sort of best friend, the troublemaking best friend. And I was like, I don't know that Molly would hang out with Stifler. And I was like, we need him like a little bit more sophisticated, but still sort of, just snarky and stuff like that. And I was like, kind of a Nico Santos guy. And it was crazy that he got submitted and he ended up being the guy, because that was really who we sort of wrote it for in our heads. Ty was our casting director, Shannon McCanian and Gabrielle Almergard. Shannon knew Ty. I didn't know much of Ty. I mean, I had seen him in Insidious and stuff like that. And I distinctly remember telling Shannon, like, he just did The Whale with Darren Aronofsky. Why would he come do he was like, oh, now I'm stepping up. The guy that did Funhouse Massacre. There'll be a hoot, and but we had a really good convo, and Ty was great in the realm that this was his first comedy, and it was like, I think for him it was also he was very similar to Elliot, and is that he's surrounded in this sort of environment that he's not comfortable in, but instead of not doing well in that, what he did is just sort of use it as, in his character. And so that sort of awkwardness and that transformation to really great comedic actor, that was completely organic,
Might have been why he did the film, because of comedy. It's a different avenue for him to take,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of people want to see these days too, believe it or
Yeah.
not. Horror or comedy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Both elicit the same things, right? This involuntary reaction. That's and I think that's why they tread similar and why I like both genres so much is that, to help to make somebody scream or jolt or something like that, that's completely involuntary, and so is laughing.
well, I'm a fan of horror. My good friend is Tony Tapone. He was the editor in chief of Fangoria magazine.
Oh wow, yeah.
He sits on. He's one of the programmers for Fantasia Film Festival.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm a big fan of horror films and comedy.
Yep.
So I mean, it's fantastic that this film. What's some of the challenges and rewards of filming? I think you filmed on a college campus.
Yeah,
Um,
we sure did.
what did you have any memorable or funny moments when you were filming?
Oh, I mean, it was a laugh riot every day. That is for sure. Yeah, we shot at Kennesaw State, and there's and another college up the road in Georgia called Reinhardt. Both were incredibly cool to us, and we got away with, like they were like, listen, I mean, the funniest thing is like the frat house, Stu's frat house is actually it was the president of Reinhardt's house. Like how giving can somebody be to be like, sure, this is my college. Come on in and redecorate my walls, and do your boner hijinks in here and stuff like that. So but we had really really fun days on set. For me, the shooting of Sully's kidnapping was probably one of the most fun days I've had because it was just so ridiculous, and the stunt guy that was in the Sully costume was amazing and was like, okay, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to roll over this guy. I'm going to slide under here. And then I'm going to do a flip over here. And these were stuff that in my mind, it was like chicken with his head cut off running around the gym, and this guy's doing acrobatics. And so, yeah, to film that was just incredibly funny.
That was so cool. That was a great scene,
Yeah.
definitely. What are some of your influences or favorite comedy films, and how did they shape your style and vision as a director?
Yeah. Well, like I said, the guys that I came up when I fell in love with film, I really, I saw Mallrats before I saw Clerks. And ironically, I think I saw She's the One before I saw Brothers McMullen. So I always saw like the sophomore effort of some of my favorite directors. I saw Dazed and Confused before I saw Slacker. So,
Yeah.
so I was really kind of seeing the sophomore efforts or like the bigger efforts from Linkletter and Kevin Smith and Edward Burns and stuff like that. Those guys were big for me in the realm in the way that they handle character and care so much for their characters.
Right.
Visually, we looked at Philippe, my DP, and we looked at a ton of different movies, all from different genres. We looked at a lot of 90s comedies and stuff like that because I think the 90s had a really unique, kind of sort of like fun take. 10 Things I Hate About You, I think is like,
Right.
if you look at like the color palette, the costumes and stuff like that in our movie, very similar to 10 Things I Hate About You. One of the movies, like more contemporary, ironically, and it was a sequel. I don't know what my deal is with like the second of something, but we watched Horrible Bosses 2. And Horrible Bosses 2 is shot so cool. Like it's just really like the way the camera moves and stuff like that. We took a lot from that movie. Not that Horrible Bosses 1 isn't amazing as well, but for whatever reason, we thought Horrible Bosses 2 had just a really, it was just shot really cool.
Yeah. What message do you hope the audience will take away from watching it?
I think that it's never too late to find yourself, and sometimes you have to go back. Sometimes you have to go back to a place to move forward.
That is absolutely true. And this film definitely did that. How do you feel about releasing your film in theaters and on digital platforms simultaneously? Do you what do deep feelings about that?
Yeah. I mean, I just want people to see it because it's like,
Yeah.
the theatrical experience is amazing. It really is. But for me, I don't know. The most memorable moments of my life watching movies, sometimes maybe a few moments in the theater, but most of them have been in like I said, in the basement with my friends. We
Right.
used to do like in high school, we used to do like these B movie marathons, with my friends, stay up all night and everything like that. And so much of my life has been like inspired by popping in a movie in the VCR. So, the fact that it's coming out theatrically is amazing. I'm going to be in Peoria, Illinois next Friday, watching it with Zach Shearer, who played Stu, because that's his hometown, and they found out about it. It's like, he has hundreds of people coming. It's going to be so much fun, and it's going to be great to watch it on the big screen. But I'm just as happy if somebody's watching it on their phone, laughing on the bus.
Well, this film was excellent. I loved it.
Thanks,
It
man.
really falls into Kevin Smith and all these players you mentioned.
Sure.
Definitely watchable. I wish you a lot of luck. And again, the re-education of Molly Singer platforms, okay, and theaters.
Yes, sir.
September 29th, 2023. Great
Click.
film. Go watch it. Loved it. And I got, I can't even say good luck because I don't think you need it at this point because it's, it's a
I'll take
wonderful
it.
film. You know,
I'll take it.
it's a beautiful thing. Thank you,
Thanks.
Andy.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.